welcome back into another new session with me, Geetu. So, today, what is the topic that we are going to be discussing? In our last session, we learned about partnership types of partnership classification, partnership deed, and registration. If a firm is not registered, what are the problems that would be faced? If a firm gets registered, what is the procedure? Now, today we are going to be looking into the types of companies, okay? Types of companies, that is private limited company and public limited company. So we have looked into the different forms of business organizations. So let's do a brief gap of whatever we have done. We have looked into sole proprietor, we have looked into joint Hindu family, we have looked into joint stock company, cooperative societies, joint Hindu family. All these are the let's say the forms, the various forms of business organizations that we have looked into. Now the last thing that is left out is private limited company versus public limited company. Okay, so what are they saying? They're saying, people are saying, you can open a sole proprietor, you can be a sole proprietor, you can open a joint stock company, you can open a cooperative society, but you can also look into opening a Okay, the difference between a private company or a public company. Now there is this particular let's say chart is very important. Learn it for a 4 marker. This they may ask you. So what are the on the what basis are they getting judged? The members, when you're talking about a private company, the word itself tells you it's a private, it's not a very big organization. So you can start off a private organization or a private company. I wouldn't call it as an organization. When you say organization, it's big, but when you say company, it is much more small. Okay. So for a private company, you just need minimum of 2 people. Okay. So minimum is 2, maximum is required to start a private company is 2, whereas the maximum, it's only 50 members who can be there in a private company. It's not more than 50 members. But when you talk about a public company, it's something that's similar to a joint stock company. But I'm just saying similar, but not the same. So the minimum number of people is 7, but the maximum is unlimited, just like a joint stock company. Okay. Now, what about the directors, the board of directors? Okay, here in a private company, you just need 2 board of directors, but here you need 3 board of directors who in a public company. Board of directors are people who are going to be the top level management in the company. They are the ones who are going to manage the entire organization of the company. Now, what is the initial capital you have to bring into the business when you're going to start a private company? It is 1 lakh. Okay. If you have 1 lakh of capital, you can start a private company. But in a public company, the minimum is 5 lakhs. That means whoever is entering, the minimum should they have to bring in is 5 lakhs. Now, what is the index number of member? Index number of members is number of members. Number of members here is compulsory 7. So, and but here it's not compulsory to, at least for you to form a company, you need 2 members. So, the next thing is transfer of shares. Transfer of shares refers to buying the shares in the company. Shares refers to, let's say, the initial to let's say a company wants money, okay, the company has gone to a bank, they have asked several people, and all these several people have given them loan. But now the only thing that's left over is the company would say, I am selling these shares. So one share, let's say let's say a share is like a paper document which has money value. Okay. So this paper document, the company will share this particular paper document to each public. It will sell it to the public, telling that one share I'm selling it at 100 rupees. So those investors, those people, those public people who have money, you can buy my shares each for 100 rupees. And I will the shares will have a maturity period. Some shares have a maturity period of 5 years. Some other shares, preference shares and all, you can sell it immediately, or after probably 5 6 months you can sell it. Now what is the advantage of shares? The advantage of shares is, the minute you buy the shares of the company, you are getting into a saving mode. Okay, your whatever salary you're earning, if you're buying the shares, your money gets invested, it gets saved. And if the company is doing very good, if the company is earning profits, the value of the shares will increase in the market. Saving mode or something, you can invest into these shares so that you can buy the shares of the company as long as the profits of the company. Next one is index of members. So once you're like I was saying, for your shares there's a lot of benefits. So if the company is earning a lot of profits, the value of the shares would increase. So what happens is, if you want to sell the shares in time, in case you need money, that time, in case of a public company you can sell your shares, but in case of a private company, there is no shares. There is no shares means there is no public that can invest their money into shares. Then, so that's what they are saying. The transfer of shares refers to no restriction. No restriction means people can sell, people can buy anytime. But here there is restriction on transfer. Probably only the internal members will have their shares, but they cannot sell the shares to anybody else. That's what the restriction is. Then invitation to the public to subscribe to the shares. Do the public here? They can invite the public to buy the shares or the debentures. Here you cannot invite the public. That means no public is allowed to buy the shares of a private limited company because it's a very small company. But here, in case of a public limited company, the company is a quite big company or organization. So here you can buy the shares of the organization. So this I'm going to mark it as a 4 marker because it was important. It will come. Same thing that we learned in the chart, here it is there in words. What are the types of companies? I have put it here for you in theory so that anytime for you can look here and you can understand. Then it restricts to the transfer of shares because they don't sell shares, they don't allot shares. What is the minimum number of members? 2 to 50, which is very much important for you to understand and know. Then it does not invite the public to subscribe to the shares. Why? Because it's a private company. The number of members are limited to 2 and 50. So there are no public who will invest their shares, or these companies will also not sell their shares. Then what is the capital? The capital that should be invested is 1 lakh or much higher depending on the need of the company. Then the company should always mention private limited after its name. So if the name of the company is ABC Limited, it should say ABC Private Limited. That is how you'll know that it's a private limited organization. Okay. So if the company does not follow these rules, let's say these rules, it will lose a lot. Okay. Now, what are the privileges? Privileges refers to advantages. What are the advantages the organization will lose? There are not. Okay, let's look into. Now, a private company can be formed with 2 members that you already know. It does not need 7 members. That itself is a very big privilege. You don't have to wait for 7 people. If you and your friend decide to start a company, you and your friend can start a private company. Then there is no need to issue any prospectus. Prospectus means, you know what? let's say if a public company wants to sell its shares, a public company has to issue a prospectus. A prospectus is something like your school calendar or your college calendar. Your college calendar, school calendar has all the details from the fee payment, who's your principal, to what is your school, or the entire history, everything is mentioned, the teachers, everyone is mentioned there in your calendar. So like that only, for a company it's called a prospectus. A prospectus is a book. In that book everything is mentioned about the organization. So if a company has to sell the shares, first they have to give this calendar or prospectus to all the public. The prospectus, it will not be sold free of cost. The prospectus will be sold for, let's say, 100 rupees. So the public who want to buy the shares will buy the prospectus for 100 rupees. So whatever this money they get is called as allotment of shares. It's called as minimum subscription. Why? Because they sold the prospectus. By selling the prospectus, they have got one minimum amount. So what they are telling, if it is a public company has to issue prospectus, the public company has to allot shares, the public company has to get minimum subscription. But for a private company, the private company does not need to undergo all these formalities. That is what they are saying. So that itself is a very big advantage. So like I was telling you, this is how a prospector, company prospector looks like. Inside this, they will mention what is the price of the shares, how much the shares are being sold for, who's the CEO, who's the president, who are the board of directors. So the people will buy these prospectus in a public company, and they will, the whatever money the public company is earning from the shares, sorry, from the prospectus, is called as minimum subscription. So what they are saying, in a private company all these formalities is not required. That itself is a very big advantage. Okay, so that is what they are saying. Now what are the other advantages? A private company can start a business. So the minute the private company goes and registers, like how we learned in that partnership thing, the minute they go register, the registrar office will take and they would give them the license. Now they'll give them a certificate called a certificate of incorporation. This is called as the birth certificate of the company. Remember this, because it's very important. The certificate of incorporation is called as the birth certificate. Like how when we are born, our parents will go and they will tell that this, like this, a baby was born in so and so hospital, and this is the name of our baby. Like that, they would go and they would register our they would register that there's a child being born into the government. Like that, when you're going to start a company, you need to have the certificate of incorporation. So the minute the private company gets the certificate of incorporation, they can start out their business. But for a public company, they have to have other documents, other legal documents that they have to wait for. But for a private company, its certificate of incorporation is more than enough. And how many directors are needed for a private company? Only two directors are needed. Then there is no restriction on the amount of loan. That means if they want to take loans from any other banks or anything, they can happily take loans. There is no problem, or there is no any such reasons that they cannot take loans. Okay, so all these are the advantages or the privileges which has been provided by the government for the private companies. The public companies. Now, like I told you, the private company, the minimum capital that needs to be invested is 1 lakh. But for a public company, the minimum capital should be 5 lakhs. Then we told you the minimum number of members for a private company is 2 to 50, but here it is 7 to unlimited. Then can the organization sell the shares? Definitely, a public organization can sell the shares. There is no reason that the organization cannot sell the shares. Then it is not probable, then it can also call the public to buy the shares, to subscribe to the share capital, to sell the shares. All these are the advantages, or all these are the benefits of a public company, but the risk factor is higher. Now The next topic, now that's what I was telling you, the private company and public company, you learn the chart. If you learn the chart, that is more than enough, okay, for a 4 marker. Now moving down into the next topic, that is choice of forms of business organization. This would come as an 8 marker or may come as a 4 marker. I'll write it down here. Now what is this answer? How exactly you learn this answer? There's not much for you to learn this answer. I'll tell you what is the reason also. Now we learned all the forms of business organization. We'll tell from first what are the types of business organizations we learned. Forms: sole proprietor, joint Hindu family, joint stock company. Then we learned partnership, cooperative societies. Then we learned the two types of companies: private company, public company. Okay, these types of forms of business organization. Now, what are they telling? When you are going to start a form of business organization, first thing is you need to take into consideration all these choices. The cost, whether it is easy to form, what kind of liabilities every business organization shares, what about its continuity? What about management, capital, degree of control, nature of business? All these are the points first you need to take into consideration. After you take it into consideration, you have thought about it, you have analyzed about it, then only you can start taking the form of organization which you want to start, and you can start. Just like how your first chapter had some basic factors which is affecting the business organization, like that, these are the choices. So these points you already know by now. I don't have to teach you. Also, see, have not included any pictures because these are the things which would go into your notes, but I'm telling you the explanation, you can write it in your own words. Just that you need to know the basic explanation. That means what is correct, what is wrong. You cannot write your own wrong explanations. Okay, so what are they saying? Cost refers to money. Ease refers to how easy it is to start a business organization. They're telling you to start a sole proprietor organization, it is not expensive at all, and there are no lot of legal formalities that is required. Minimum legal formalities are required to start a sole proprietor. But if you want to start a partnership also, it is easy to start. The documentations are very less, but it is very advantageous because many people are there to share the burden with you. But if you want to start a cooperative society, or their registration is very much compulsory. See, in sole proprietor, it's only that you need to go fill one form and come. In partnership, you just need to fill certain legal formalities. Again, registration is not important in partnership. But when it comes to cooperative society, it is very, very important. Why? Because there are 10 people who are coming together. It's a voluntary association of people who are wanting to do something good for the society. Now, but when it comes to formation of company, what that means, I'm not talking private company, public company, I'm talking about joint stock companies. The procedure is very expensive, it's a very important procedure, everything has to be followed properly. So what are these red lines that I've given here? This is the conclusion. What are they saying? You can open sole proprietor, partnership, everything you can do. But when it comes to companies, it gets very complex, or it becomes the cost involved is very much higher. Okay, so you have to know what type of forms of organization you open, what is going to. One is liability. The minute I say liability, I'm going to ask you, sole proprietor, what liability? Unlimited liability. Why? Because he is single owner. When I say partnership, what liability? Some partner, all the partners only share unlimited liability. When I say joint in the family, only Karta has unlimited liability. The co-partners have limited liability. When I say cooperative society, what is it? They have limited liability. So what are they saying? You need to understand before you start opening whichever form of business, whether unlimited liability is better or whether limited liability is better. But which has more risk? Definitely the company, the organizations here have more risk, but they are all sharing limited liability. So in case of liability, company is best. Correct? No. But in case of cost and ease of formation, they're saying company is not the best. Company has lot of risk. So that, what are they doing? They're just comparing the different forms of business organizations, and they are telling which is better, which is not better. Depending on that, you can start your business. Then continuity. In sole proprietor, person will die anytime. Partnership, people will get affected by death or insolvency or let's say lunacy, all these things. But let's say in a cooperative society also, people will get affected. They will leave anytime because it's a voluntary service. Joined in the family also, it's three heads. So anytime that business will also come to an end. But what about let's say companies? Companies will move on forever. Joint stock companies. There is no end to the company. That is what. Then, management ability. Sole proprietor feels it very difficult because he cannot expertise in all functions. Partnership, he also cannot expertise in all functions, but definitely it is a good venture, partnership. Then cooperative society, not everybody is there for them to do the job. So what happens here? Management ability, people will be there to manage your various activities, but what happens, there's a lot of conflicts that will come into difference of opinion, difference of things, telling that I don't agree to this, I agree to this. Yes. So you need to again to take into considerations, and you need to see which form of organization is better. Then capital considerations. Then what are they saying? When it comes to companies, companies are able to sell their shares and get a large amount of capital into the business. So there are large investors when it comes to your companies. But when it comes to sole proprietor, when it comes to your partnership, when it comes to, let's say, cooperative societies, all these businesses suffer. They don't get large capital that can be invested into the company. Comes to degree of control. What is the degree of control? Sole proprietor, he is the king. That's because it's his business. Partnership, he has full control. He can control. Why? Because there are active partners, sleeping partners, depending on the partners, they can control the business. So you see, I'm not underlining any points here. I'm not probably I've only changed the color of the sentences because those are the ones which are important. But what I would tell you is read it once or twice. It's more than enough for you to understand and know what the answer is. Okay. So what are they saying? Degree of control. Every form of business organization have their own control. Sole proprietor has his full control over the business. Joint in the family, it's a family business, so they will have their own control. When it comes to companies, these companies, they will decide who is the owner, what is the ownership, who is the what is the management, and only the management and the professionals will decide what is the control, what control should be taken, what plans should be set, who is going to manage the business. The employees will not be managing the business here, but the top level management will be managing the business here in the organizations. So next one, nature of business. What is the this is the last one, nature of business. What is this nature of business? Nature of business refers to contacting your customers. Okay, like let's say sole proprietor, he has full control in contacting your customers. But when you're talking about big companies, do they contact customers? No, they act as consultants to other companies. So when it comes to service as professionalism and all these things, you see that there is no direct contact with your customers here. Your nature of business is the type of business, whether you want to select like product line, whether you want to provide services. So when you talk about organizations, these big organizations provide services or consultancy services. But when you talk about an organization which wants to provide service in terms of products, that is when they have a line where they concentrate on customers. What's the customer's needs? What do they need? All these things come into picture. So these are the organizations that we have learned. What I would tell you is go through, read the topic once or twice. It is not very complicated. And one more thing, until now it's not been asked, but always learn the points and self explanate these points. I'm sure you'll be able to do it. So, any doubts you have, any questions you have, please feel free to ask me, to put a comment in the comment box. I would be happy to assist you, or you can personally get in touch with me as well. So, thank you. Please like, please subscribe, and please share the videos. Thank you so much.